The Celtics bounced back from their loss in Denver with one of the greatest offensive performances in NBA history, and Neemias Queta's career-high night powers the Celtics over the Sixers. This is Bleav in Celtics. I'm your host, Zach LeBlanc, Celtics insider for Bleav and longtime fan of the Boston Celtics, here to tell you everything you need to know about the team. This is Bleav in Celtics. So to get to where we are today after the Celtics' two big wins to put them at win number 40 on the year, we got to go back to last week in the Celtics' loss to Denver. This was a game last night of their road trip, second night of a back-to-back, and they ultimately lost their legs in this one. To start things off, this was a defensive battle between both teams. The score at halftime was 48-46. The Celtics up by 2. But beginning in this game, Jaylen Brown got the scoring started. He double digits in the first quarter. Derek White picked up 18 in the second quarter, but then after that, that's where things started to slow down for the Celtics. And this was a rough shooting night for the team. They couldn't really generate any offense. They generated the looks, but they just couldn't get them to fall. Pritchard and Vucevic both off the bench. Horrible nights for them. Just simply could not get anything to go. Vucevic only made or didn't make any shots. Pritchard just had 1-3 in this one, so no real help from the bench. And like I said, Brown and White were good in that first half offensively, but they could not pick up anywhere in the second half. Derek White really left scoreless outside of that second quarter. Overall, as a team, like I said, they got some great looks in that first half, but no way to find the bottom of the rim. Like I said, fourth game of a long road trip, that West Coast trip. It's second night of a back-to-back. I would think, too, Jaylen Brown being rested before would give him a little bit more fresh leg. He did not have the greatest game in this one, at least scoring-wise, and that's where the Celtics needed him most. But it was a typical Joe Mazzulla offensive night where the Celtics got great looks from three. They were getting the shots that they wanted, the shots that Joe Mazzulla wants, but they just could not find the bottom of the basket. And like I said, the Celtics defense kept them in this game in the first half. But if they started making some of those shots, they built up a little bit of a cushion. I don't think the game would have gone the way it did. But like I said, they lost their legs. The end of the third quarter was a difficult stretch for the Celtics. Not only could they not buy a single shot, but Denver came out and transitioned off those misses. It was a quick 11-0 run by Denver that really just led them to a victory in this game. All of a sudden, the Celtics led 66-65 in the third quarter. That would be the last time they had the lead in that game. Denver, 11-0 run fueled by not only the Celtics missing, but the Celtics could not get a stop in transition. Just transition baskets, transition fouls, and just like that, in 2 minutes, it's 66, just fueled by those transition baskets by Denver. Celtics let go of the rope in this one, lost their legs, and a game that I think my big takeaway from this is that it reminds you why the Celtics could use a guy like Jason Tatum. Denver's defense, their game plan was to be physical in this one. And this is a team that didn't have Aaron Gordon. They didn't have Peyton Watson, two of the really strong defenders for this team. But a guy like Jason Tatum allows you to play sort of that physical defensive style, combat that. Like I said, the Celtics individually in this one were very pressured by the Nuggets, getting into the body, making things extremely tough in the second half for the Celtics. A guy like Jason Tatum in this one would have helped to not only be able to create space for a shot, having the ability to shoot over defenders, work his way to open space, but also get more open looks for these guys, draw two. It's difficult when, you as Celtics fans, we realize now that this season, as good as they've been, it is such a luxury to have two guys that put so much pressure on the defense that the amount of open looks that the Celtics are going to get when Jason Tatum, if he comes back, is going to be tremendous. And I think that was my main takeaway from this Denver game, is how important having a guy like Jason Tatum in that game, having just another guy who can create off the dribble, sort of minimize that defensive pressure, generate open looks for everyone else. But we will see, hopefully, Tatum coming back soon, hopefully within the next couple of weeks. We're into March now. Like I said, that first to second week of March is really where I'm eyeing, and we're in that right now. The Celtics defense on Jokic, to me, though, was the story of this night, at least defensively. He had some solid looks overall, but he shot 11 for 28. They held him to 6 assists. They just simply couldn't overcome their offensive struggles. If you told me the Celtics were going to hold Jokic to a night like that, I would have said the Celtics have a great chance to win, and they did have a chance to win. But really, by the time we got to that fourth quarter, the Celtics were out of that game. They lost their legs. They let go of the rope. But that ended the Celtics West Coast trip. Overall, productive trip, 3-1. Two, I think, really big wins over the Warriors and the Lakers. And I don't want to take away from what they did in Phoenix. That obviously was an injured Suns team. But at the same time, the way that they responded, being down 41-30 to then go on a 50-11 run, I think really was told the story of that game in the Phoenix game. So 3 solid wins for the Celtics. Tough. Would have loved to see them pick up a 4th win in Denver, but you'll take the 3-1 on the road trip. Like I said last week, 3-1 I think is the perfect number for them. If they can just go 3-1 on that road trip, that was ideal. Now we have to talk about this Celtics Nets game because it's always a question mark coming back from West Coast trips, especially one where the Celtics close out poorly because of their fatigue, but their offense did not shy in this one. And this was a historic offensive performance, and we're going to get to that. Derek White in this game kicked it off, like I said, 18 in the second quarter in the Nuggets game, but really struggled outside of that. He set the tone early, 3 for 3 from 3 to start this game. On the other hand, Jaylen Brown, cold early in this one, 0 for 4 from the free throw line, had a couple misses early in this game, but after that, he was just straight money in this game. To close out the second half and begin the third quarter, he scored 12 straight for the Celtics, and he was a playmaker as of usual. This was a historic night shooting-wise for the Celtics, and Jaylen Brown was a big factor of that. Since the All-Star break coming back, all 5 games, Jaylen Brown is averaging 8 assists per game since the All-Star break. Incredible numbers. That's one of the big things that we wanted to see. His development without Jason Tatum this year was, if you're going to be an elite guy, if you're going to be the number 1 option, you have to be a playmaker. And he's stepped up to that role, especially after this All-Star break. His scoring's been down a little, but I think that's because teams are now loading up on him and he's finding guys. And not only that, I think everyone else on the Celtics is getting a little bit more comfortable. The system is working. Everyone else has really found their rhythm, and so that just means more guys are going to make some more shots. Peyton Pritchard and Nikola Vucevic also bounced back incredibly in this one. The Celtics moved to 7-0 when Peyton Pritchard scores 20 off the bench this season. Just incredible numbers considering, too, he started the first 40-plus games of this year and is now coming off the bench, still putting up those numbers. Tremendous bounce-back effort for him in this Nets game. And Nikola Vucevic, another guy that I talked about, really struggled in that Nuggets game, had the best night as a Celtic in this one. 28 points off the bench, providing that post-up presence as well as spacing the floor, continuing to move the basketball. Some of the things that I've just talked about, how he integrates himself into this team, is how can he space the floor, and not only that, how can he contribute to moving the ball. It's been amazing to see. I think that was a really good just bounce-back game for him, considering being 0 for 5 in that Denver game. That is, like, the Celtics picked him up for that reason he's a solidified center in this league. He needs to be able to produce night in and night out, even if he's just coming off the bench. And for him to then come out and respond in the way that he did in this game, I think was big for this team. They really enjoyed and benefited off how he played in this one. And at times, Vucevic said this, and this goes back to what I talked about last week, that I said I want Vucevic to be more aggressive. He said, at times, I do feel like I overthink a little bit, which makes me kind of hesitant and takes away my aggressiveness. And I felt like tonight I was just able to put a little bit more together. Awesome stuff to hear from him. Finally starting to really get a little bit more comfortable in this team. And speaking of the comfortability, Joe Mazzulla was asked about that. And Joe Mazzulla said, I hope that he doesn't get comfortable, because then we're not going to strive to get better. And I think that speaks to that, mentality of who Joe Mazzulla is, but also that how big of a factor Vooch can be for this team. He's just obviously he's coming off the bench, but we know the type of player that he is. He's still scoring at a high rate this year before when he was in Chicago, and he still should be able to do that on the Celtics here, albeit in a little bit of a lesser role. And just imagine the type of open looks that I'll get when Jason Tatum comes back. The Celtics really needed a guy like how they have with Kristaps Porzingis, where you not only can run the pick and roll with him, but you can also run the pick and pop. You can do that. You can run the pick and roll with Queta. He's that lob threat, but you need a guy that you can, find on the pick and roll, the pick and pop, and know that he's going to then either score, make the next pass, make the right read. And that's what Nikola Vucevic has provided to this team. Now, I talked about the historic night offensively for the Celtics. Among NBA records set in the Celtics' 148-111 win over the Nets, the highest effective field goal percentage in NBA history, 81%, just rounding here. Highest true shooting percentage, 83%, and the highest three-point percentage with more than 23s, 65%. Truly remarkable numbers. The Celtics got everyone involved in this one, setting a season high for points scored, 148, 39 assists to go along with that. And the Celtics with a 51-16 run to end the third and to start the fourth, going back. I mean, having in the span of 3 games, having 2 runs where you outscore your opponent in just massive margins. Like I said, the Nets game, 51-16 run to end the third quarter and start the fourth, and then going back to the Suns game, a 50-11 run with the Suns. This was just tremendous to see the Celtics really put both these teams away in the second and third quarter of these games. Tremendous work by Boston. And even with the league, guys like Hugo Gonzalez, Peyton Pritchard, who I talked about bounce back, making plays. Hugo had an amazing block. He had a poke ball, diving for the loose ball, doing all sorts of things. No matter what the score is, these guys are just putting the effort out there. Good to see John Tonje as well record his first points as a Celtic. Delano Bain scoring his first points back. Like I said, Celtics improving to 7-0 as well when Peyton Pritchard comes off the bench. When Tatum comes back, I think that's 2. Pritchard moving to that bench role kind of sets up for when Jason Tatum, if he does come back, to then slide into where Baylor Shireman is in that starting lineup. And then that bench unit is going to be, I think, amazing for the Celtics. You're going to have White, Brown, Tatum, Hauser, and Queta in that starting lineup. And then off the bench, your bench is just going to get stronger. Baylor Shireman, we'll touch on him a little bit in that Sixers game because I want to touch on the impact that he had in that one. But the Celtics bench is only going to get better by having Jason Tatum back. Now we have to talk about Neemias Queta and his career night for the Celtics in their win over the Sixers to pick up win number 40. The Celtics 40-20 on the year. I mean, what a tremendous year it's been so far. I placed the bet for the Celtics to win 50 games this year, but for them to even just be this great of a basketball team without Jason Tatum, who hasn't played a single minute this year, and the Celtics are tied in the Eastern Conference for the best odds to go to the finals, I think it's tremendous. It speaks on, how great of a coach Joe Mazzulla is, how committed and bought in all those guys in the locker room. Everyone has extremely stepped up this year. And speaking of that, Neemias Queta, he's not going to win it, but he should go. He should be the most improved player in the NBA. He's really took his game to another level this year where, guys, over the past couple of years, he was more just seen as a rotational center, a guy, who could step up if you had an injury, but for him to come into this season and prove that he is a starting caliber center in the NBA has been one of the best stories, I think. And he does a lot of the little things. He does a lot of the, the screen setting, the cuts to the basket, and his game is day by day, game by game improving. And so it's tremendous to see from Neemias Queta. The Celtics and the Sixers, when they played this year, it's gone down to the wire every time. It's gone down to the last shot. This one a little bit different. Jaylen Brown after the game said, "We're a better team than since the last time we played those guys in November. Everyone's gotten better. The younger guys have gotten more comfortable." So I was interesting to see how this game goes, especially considering no Joel Embiid. Celtics back to the mean in terms of 3-point shooting. Like I said, 65% in that Nets game. They started 3 for 13 in this one, but what kept them in the game early was those second chance points. 13 second chance points. They ended up finishing the game with 30, just dominating the glass in this one. And they trailed by 10 in the first quarter. But after outscoring the Sixers 36-22 in the second quarter, the Celtics never looked back in this one. I talked a little bit about Baylor Shireman earlier. He's coming in with that left thumb fracture. He's obviously a lefty shooting-wise, so a big question for how he was going to shoot. And it wasn't the best night shooting-wise for him. He did make he had 2 threes, and he had a mid-range jump shot, and he had a very deep 2. His foot was on the line. But his buzzer beater 3 to end the second quarter, I think, was a big momentum swing. But Sam Hauser had a good comment on Baylor Shireman this week. He's a Swiss Army knife type of player. And in this game, I thought that really came out. Just because he didn't necessarily have the greatest shooting night, he made a huge impact on the defensive end for the Celtics. Multiple deflections, he blocked steals. Play where there was an lob to Adem Bona, and Baylor Shireman pretty much leaping up just to get a hand on to knock the ball out of bounds before the lob can be made. Getting back in transition defense to poke the ball free from Tyrese Maxey in a layup. Little stuff like that even when he's not going to have the best shooting night, still adjusting to that left thumb. And I love this celebration, holding up the thumb after each made shot. I think it's similar to Jason Tatum holding the wrist in the playoffs last year after his wrist injury. But Baylor Shireman had a big impact in this one. The threes would start falling, 11 for 28 after that. They gave the Celtics a 10-point lead, which pretty much hovered around that. And Neemias Queta, an extremely productive career night for him. He had a double-double just in the first half with 7 minutes and 40 seconds to go in that first half. The Sixers hung around cut the Celtics 16-point lead to 6 with 4 minutes to play, but Neemias Queta, like I said, closed the door on the Sixers in this one. He scored 8 straight for the Celtics to cap off his career night after the Sixers cut that lead to 6. And what I love most about this night for him, 27 points, of course, that career high number, 17 rebounds, almost a 20-20 game for him. But the biggest thing for me, 10 of those rebounds were on the offensive end. He is really dominated there, and especially as a guy like Andre Drummond, who is a known rebounder, for him to not only dominate positioning-wise, but to just capitalize. He made the right read earlier in a play in the game where he was feeded down low, and he made an extra pass to Sam Hauser to get a 3. Next possession, he gets an offensive rebound and 1, rewarded for making the right play there. The Sixers' strategy in this game, too, was to take Jaylen Brown out of the game. Dominic Barlow guarding him at half court immediately. I talked about Jaylen Brown, ability to be a playmaker. Nick Nurse wanted to play some aggressive defense, not let the Celtics three-point shooters get shots. So what did that mean for Neemias Queta? It meant that he had to dominate the paint in this one, and that's exactly what he did. Where there was offensive rebounds, he had some fantastic, swing layups. Jelly fan Neemias Queta, just an incredible game for him. Some powerful dunks, taking Andre Drummond off the dribble in the second half. Just an all-around night for Neemias Queta, and I hope that, speaking of Andre Drummond, talked to Neemias Queta after the game and said to build on it. I hope Neemias Queta builds on it for this team, because that is how important and how amazing he's been all year, and it's good to see right before the playoff time him fully really establishing himself with this team. And if him and Vucevic can both be that sort of 1-2 punch at the center position, a spot for the Celtics that at the beginning of the year had a lot of questions is almost pretty much solidified in that center rotation. So all in all, a tremendous 2 games to really respond from that Nuggets loss for the Celtics, just dominating fashion in both. And, like I said, it wasn't pretty necessarily in that Sixers game. It wasn't pretty in the Nets game early, but the Celtics really picked it up in the second quarter and on in both those games once they settled in. And because of that, the Celtics are sitting at 40 wins and 20 losses. And just like that, we're in March 2nd, a little bit with a month over until the playoffs, and Jason Tatum still hasn't played a minute for this team. We'll be back to talk about the Celtics. They play the Bucks tonight, a big game in Milwaukee. I'm excited to see how the Celtics continue to progress throughout this next week of the season. I will be back Wednesday to talk about that game, talk a little bit about what Jason Tatum's return can mean for this team, how big it's going to be, what is next for the Celtics. This is Bleav in Celtics. I'm your host, Zach LeBlanc. Thanks for listening.